As always, thanks for joining us on Pennsylvania Newsmakers. Well, Governor Shapiro's energy plan and the economy are big stories of the week. But first, the scammers are hard at work. Let's take a look at the big scammers. And you know the answer to the question. They're trying to get your money. We'll do that and more after these words.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, a top consumer investigator joins me. He's Brian Roche. He's not just consumer investigator, but he's an anchor with WGAL News 8. And Brian, thanks for coming on the program.
A pleasure to be back.
All right, you spend a good bit of your career taking a look at scammers as they try to get our money, and as they try to get our money. And one of them that seems new to me, and you'll tell me if it's new, it's called teen sextortion. What?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, what is it?
Sextortion's been around for a while. Basically, scammers get pictures of people or they get videos of people in compromising positions. And sometimes they're real, sometimes the videos are not real. With artificial intelligence right now, they can create just about anything they want. Yeah. And so they contact the victim and say, we are going to publish, print, release these photos unless you pay us money. It's a form of extortion, thus the sextortion. And a particular concern right now, growing by 20% last year, according to the FBI, is teen sextortion, where teenagers, and specifically teenage boys between the ages of, I think, 13 and 18, are being targeted. This age group, think about them, Terry, they get online and they spend a lot of time in gaming rooms, they play video games, and they do chats, TikTok, Instagram, and what's going on are scammers, usually in Western Africa or Europe, according to the FBI. They're posing as teenage girls, and they're engaging these boys to
teenage girls.
Yeah, posing as teenage girls and engaging these boys in friendly chats. And then, of course, it evolves to the point where I'll send you naked pictures of me if you send me naked pictures of you.
And people do that?
Well, teenagers apparently do. Yeah, people do it, but teenagers, of course, may be particularly vulnerable to this in order to make a friend. And so once the teenager, and specifically the boy, does this, instantly the scammer says, I've got your pictures, and now you need to pay me money, either through Bitcoin or gift cards or what have you. They also have those gaming tokens that they use to go back and forth. And here's the really sad part about this, according to the FBI. This has led to a spike, a sad spike in suicides among these teenage boys.
Wow.
Because once they get compromised, they start to realize what's ahead of them. You know, did they want to go to college? Did they want to apply to do a trade school, something like that? And they realize all of a sudden their future is in doubt. Now, we don't have hard stats on the suicide.
Is this growing?
It is growing, yeah. The FBI said it increased by 20% alone last year. We just ran a story on it on our station, WGAL, and it got quite a response. So it is a growing concern, especially for parents. Parents need to be aware of what their kids are doing in these gaming rooms, on these chat rooms, and pay attention to who they're communicating with. But teen sextortion becoming a major and serious problem.
All right, another scam you refer to as update payment phishing emails.
This one's pretty simple. Scammers are sending out emails to people who are consumers online. And look, you and I buy things online. And they're telling consumers that you need to update your accounts. And we have so many accounts now with different companies, it's hard to keep track of. And the scammers are trying to say, look, your credit card expired with your account here online. Your information has expired. Please click on this link and update your information and your credit card. Now, you and I have discussed this many, many times here on your program.
Right.
Never, ever, ever click on a link in a suspicious email. But what the scammers are trying to do
and I'm following that advice, by the way.
I'm glad. I'm very glad for that. What the scammers are trying to do, they're trying to hope that you don't remember did I really open an account with this particular online service? They target the names of the popular ones like Amazon, clothing stores like Lands' End, things like that. They try to make you believe, and there's phishing. It's basically phishing for your personal information and your credit card information. But we have seen a dramatic increase in that in, I'd say, the last 6 to 8 months.
All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, I'm going to ask Mr. Roche about Facebook Marketplace account takeovers. For all you Facebook fans, you better be aware after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
All right, my guest is Brian Roche. He is an anchor and consumer investigator with WGAL News 8, and we're talking about how the scammers are taking our money. So let's turn to another one that involves Facebook. Do I got that right?
You do.
And you call it Facebook Marketplace account takeovers.
Well, yeah, there are actually two separate issues, well, both related to Facebook. First of all, the account takeovers. This is I dare use the word epidemic. Last week, Pennsylvania's Attorney General, Michelle Henry, joined 40 other attorneys general across the country, sending a letter to Meta, Facebook's parent company, saying you have got to do something about these account takeovers. It is, again, it's an epidemic. People are losing control of their accounts. I've done numerous stories on this. Someone hacks into their account, and then they start posing as that person trying to sell things. It's nefarious things.
Sure.
Most of the time, they're trying to pose as that person and trying to get people to buy into Bitcoin. But the hacker takes over, changes the password, and the person loses their account. Like you would lose your account. You'd still be on Facebook as Terry Madonna, but it's someone else posting under your name, making it look like you're endorsing something. And Meta has got a serious problem with this. I'll just say it very candidly. They've got a serious problem. And in the letter, these attorneys general said, you've got to do something about this. But Meta and Facebook, they have not been responding. Last year, or recently, I should say, they laid off, I believe it was somewhere around 10 or 11,000 of their security personnel who were watching this. So now these account takeovers.
Is it about the money?
Yeah, I mean, everything comes down to money in this area.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're trying to get, the one particular story I did recently was a realtor. Her account was taken over, very popular. She's well known in her community, and the scammer is just posting over and over and over again about buying Bitcoin. And the other one you mentioned is Facebook Marketplace. People can go on there and buy and sell things. And what's happening on there, scammers are going on, they're seeing someone say, you're selling something. They'll write back to you immediately and say, Terry, I will buy that off you for more than what you want, and I will take it off the market. And then they draw you into this elaborate scheme of maybe you sending money through a gift card or through a wire transfer or something. Yes, it gets really antsy. But people are selling things on Facebook Marketplace, and they think, oh, I've got a buyer. And this person is far away. They start sending them emails. It's a long, drawn-out process, but in the end, it's always, again, it's about money. So if you're posting something on Facebook Marketplace, try to deal with someone local, someone who's, you know, if you look on Facebook Marketplace, it'll tell you where is that item being sold, what community is that. Try to stick close to the people who are close to you.
Now, this isn't a typical scam, but you refer to it as password managers.
No, it's not a scam at all. In fact, it's a protection device. I highly advocate the use of password managers. For example, when I talk to a lot of people who have their accounts taken over, for example, on Facebook, and they eventually I can get around to talking to them and say, what was your password? Terry, the passwords that some people use are pathetically simple. And they use the same password over and over again. So these password managers are online programs, and there's several of them out there. They keep track of your passwords, and they will tell you, they'll audit your password and say, Terry, This password is terrible. It's too simple, and you're using it in several other different locations. I highly advocate that people go online and look for a password manager. Some of them you have to pay for, some of them are free. The key with a password manager is you have to have a super password to get into your password manager.
Super password.
You need to make up a super password full of all kind of things on the keyboard, and I'm talking like 20 characters, because you're creating essentially a bank vault here of all your passwords, and they're all in one place. And if you want to go and use them, the password manager will remember, oh, Terry, is this your password for this one? And you can just click on it and launch it. It sounds complicated. I can see the look on your face there.
It is complicated.
It is complicated, and I'm very candid with people. When you set up a password manager, it's going to take you some time, but the peace of mind that you get is definitely worth it. For example, I checked recently, and I don't know if we're running out on time here. I have 37 different accounts that I have in my password manager, and it keeps track of all of them. Wow. And every once in a while, it will say to me, Brian, you haven't changed this password in 6 months. You need to change this password.
Well, look, I want to thanks for the update. You have another assignment the next time you put out a list of scams. You got to come into the program and tell us about it.
Happy to do it.
All right, coming up, we're going to talk about energy and the economy, and we'll do that with one of the state's leading experts after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
All right, energy and the economy are important topics, and we're going to take them up with an expert on both. David Taylor, he's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. David, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much, Terry.
All right, Governor Shapiro has an energy plan. First of all, tell the folks what the energy plan is about, and then what you think about it.
Yeah, so Governor Shapiro's new energy plan that he introduced recently has two parts to it. The first would be a carbon tax on Pennsylvania's coal and natural gas-fired power plants, which today provide just about 70% of Pennsylvania's electricity. And then the second part would be kind of a government takeover of the energy sector by mandating different sources be used to provide 35% of the state's electricity.
Yeah. Well, what is it that you think about this?
Well, I mean, I guess, Terry, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That the carbon tax would be a Pennsylvania-specific tax on obviously the great workhorses of our energy economy, and then that the government would take that money, use it on what it thinks is good, and then give a partial rebate back to consumers to mitigate their higher electricity costs. So we think that this is unnecessary and unwise. And again, it's just, even if this plan doesn't pass, which I don't think it will, it sends the sign to investors not to come here, to say, look, the investment environment in Pennsylvania is uncertain. It's easier to just go to Ohio and West Virginia. I said that Mike DeWine and Jim Justice should send Governor Shapiro like a fruit basket.
So you relate his energy plan to the overall health of the economy? Well,
sure, because every sector of the economy requires energy. And when energy becomes more expensive, it drives inflation. And it gets pancaked because, every level of production becomes more expensive. And it's not necessary because the governor's goals of emission reductions, good paying jobs, these things are already being provided by our energy economy as it exists today.
What's the future of this?
Well, I mean, just to get through the second part about the mandate. So Pennsylvania has a mandate, the so-called Alternative Energy Portfolio Standard. It's a mandate of 8%, that 8% of Pennsylvania's electricity be generated by certain sources. In state, we only generate 1%. This is wind and solar. So basically, we have to import this energy from other states to close the gap. The governor's plan would move that to 35%, and it would mandate not just wind and solar, but also additional technologies which unfortunately don't yet exist. So maybe someday there will be fusion reactors. We don't have them now. Maybe someday there will be, marketable, deployable, small modular nuclear reactors that are approved by the federal government. I hope so. I don't know that they'll be online by 2035. So this is a very dangerous game, and that again, to force, it's wildly unpractical. Of the energy sources that are going to be mandated, the only one that has any shot of actually generating the electricity is solar power. To have enough solar panels to generate that much electricity in Pennsylvania, you would have to clear cut 1/3 of all Pennsylvania state forests.
1/3.
Right. This is an area of land equal to Chester, Delaware, and Philadelphia counties, every square inch of them covered in solar panels. And again, the life of a solar panel is about 20 years, after which it turns into toxic garbage. So this is a wildly impractical plan, again, presuming that these fictional technologies don't emerge in time. And so this is, the plan was developed by a working group that apparently didn't include any actual energy producers, definitely not anybody who would be paying this new tax. And so, again, it's easy to get a group together to figure out how to spend the money on yourself that you're going to take from other people. But Terry, the bottom line is that the U.S. is the world's largest economy. We are 13% of global emissions and dropping. China is the world's second largest economy. They have 30% of global emissions, and that their emissions are rising. So if you're concerned about emissions, you're literally in the wrong country. And I think that State Senator Kim Ward, the Senate President, said it best to say, you Governor Shapiro, take us out of Reggie first, and then we'll talk.
All right. When we come back from this break, I want to talk about the economy and see where Pennsylvania stands within the nation and what jobs look like, and we'll do that in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania American Water. We keep life flowing across the Keystone State.
All right, let's talk about the state of the economy, jobs, and more with David Taylor from the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. All right, the economy, how strong is it?
Well, I mean, at the national level, there's some mixed signals. So inflation has remained stubbornly high, and it's more than twice the level when President Biden took office, although down from the worst of the inflationary spike. Of course, all those cost increases are cumulative, and so people are continuing to have great difficulty with paying for groceries and making it to the end of the month. At the same time, there was also some positive news at the national level that hiring came in last month at a much higher level than expected. Mm-hmm. So, this leaves the Federal Reserve chair in a real quandary as to how to weigh these conflicting signals on whether or not to lower interest rates, which of course then would stimulate growth in the economy.
As you know, David, we were at one point a leader in the Industrial Revolution, producing jobs in a whole variety of industries. And Pennsylvania had to go through an enormous change as these industries, coal, iron, oil, steel, went, I won't say in decline, but Pennsylvania wasn't as relevant as we once were.
It's true.
So what's replaced them? What's going on with the economy in terms of new jobs?
Well, I mean, inevitably, when you get away from, from manufacturing and heavy industry, that it moves to things that are more service-oriented, whether those are, in-person services like restaurant jobs, or professional services like, like insurance and IT management and those kinds of things. I mean, of course, as an advocate for manufacturing, I would assert that, number one, manufacturing is still very important to the Commonwealth. It's $100 billion of value added every year, and over 500,000 jobs on the plant floor. And of course, manufacturing has the strongest multiplier effect on job creation. So it's not just what happens on the plant floor, it's also all the supply chain jobs, all the distribution jobs, all of the vendors who serve what happens on the plant floor.
Right.
And that that manufacturing is critical to the success of our communities, that your major manufacturer is a significant local taxpayer. And so, our leaders
that's an important point.
Because having those kinds of taxpayers are what sustains local government, critical services, and quality of life.
But manufacturing companies also do something else, and that is they're purchasers and buyers in the communities in which they live.
That's correct.
And so they're an important component to the economy of the regions in which they're located.
Right, and that's why, again, we need our leaders to be focused on the economic environment in which our manufacturers have to operate, and that we need to have, abundant, affordable, market-based energy. That brings me back to our grave concern over what the governor put forward. We need to have a skilled workforce, and with Pennsylvania's demographic challenges and the kind of social stigma that we have put on people who choose something other than going after a four-year degree, these are real attitudinal and societal changes that we need to follow through on. Well,
we have a fair number of vocational educational programs in the state that train people to do exactly what you're talking about.
We do. We have some great institutions. Of course, Thaddeus Stevens in Lancaster and the Pennsylvania College of Technology,
that where I live.
And many others. Our community college system. There's a question of capacity, and there's also a question of student interest. And I just, you've heard me say many times, Terry, that I think that there's a sickness in our society when we don't honor all kinds of work, that we depend on one another, and especially in this modern society with all these different systems of delivery that are almost invisible, that those things have to be staffed, and we need those folks.
Thanks for the update. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.